succeeded in his entry into the campaign, according to a poll taken by Le Nouvel Observateur, which we should remember, or I should say rather, was taken on Saturday, so before his big campaign speech on Sunday. Nevertheless, only 37% of people thought that he'd done well in his big speech announcing that he was going to to be running for president for a second term next week. So that's not particularly good news for him. His campaign slogan also seems to be playing against him. Of course, it's La France forte, strong France. So they asked people in that poll if they thought a second term of Sarkozy would make France stronger, and 2/3 of people said they didn't think so. So that's not great news. Le Figaro, though, as ever, defending the president. Their editorial today says the duel has begun between him and François Hollande as the rest of the candidates start to fall behind those two at the top of the polls. They say he's got a new tool in his box to fight François Hollande with, and that's proportional representation. He's suggesting that 10% of the MPs in the French Parliament be elected proportionally. Now, that obviously doesn't go very far, only 10%, but it's enough to make some of Le Figaro's editorialists worry. One of them says that it would break the link between MPs and the constituency they represent, so it might be undemocratic. But they do quote representatives from the centrist François Bayrou, Marine Le Pen and Jean-Luc Mélenchon in the paper, all saying their candidates back proportional representation, but then you would expect them to, because they'd all get more MPs under that system.
Yes, that would suit them, wouldn't it? Now, moving on to education, staying with the election, education is becoming a key issue in this campaign.
Does France need more teachers? That's the big question on the front page of La Croix. Now, 80,000 teaching jobs apparently have been lost in France in the last 5 years, mostly as a result of a Sarkozy policy where only half of teachers who retire get replaced. Now, the paper says this has made teachers furious. They've got, quote them inside, saying they've been striking and protesting, saying they're trying to teach classes of more than 30 primary school children in one go, and they just can't cope. Now, François Hollande said he's going to create 60,000 jobs in the teaching profession, but the paper says we're not entirely sure how he might pay for it.
Now, the president's policy is under fire then when it comes to education. He's also being criticised for trying to parachute a friend into a top job.
Yeah, this is the former Environment Minister, Jean-Louis Borloo, a centrist who at one point it was thought might be running against the president for the presidency in this election. He's not running now, but Sarkozy still needs to keep him on side, and it's rumoured that he offered him the job of CEO of the French energy giant Veolia. In exchange for this, there he is on the front page of Les Echos. Their headline says general malaise over the idea of nominating Borloo to Veolia. They say the company is on the edge of going into administration. They have all kinds of financial problems. So they need a financial manager who knows what he's doing, not a politician.
Now, one man who's hoping to take part in the upcoming presidential election here in France, of course, is Dominique Strauss-Kahn. He's back in the headlines and facing questioning this morning.
He just won't go away, will he? Here he is on the front page of Le Parisien. He is, of course, being questioned by police today and could indeed be spending the night in a cell, according to Le Parisien, if they want to talk to him for longer. Of course, this is about the prostitution ring that he allegedly was part of in Lille, in the north of France. The big question is whether or not he knew the women involved were actually being paid to be there. He has admitted participating in orgies with some of the women involved, but he could be facing corruption charges if it's proved that he offered any of the men involved in organising it favours in exchange for them procuring him women, if you like. Now, Libération has spoken to some of the women involved in that. So they have very different points of view, though. One of them says that DSK treated her very well and that she thinks he might well not have known that she was being paid when she visited him in Washington. And another says, though, that he was very violent towards her and that there's no way he couldn't have known she was being paid.
Finishing off with a bit of culture, Chinese artist Ai Weiwei is Libération's special guest.
Yes, he became quite a cause célèbre for a lot of the liberal media around the world when he was detained in China last year, of course. He has now been released, but his bail conditions mean he can't leave China. Although Libération has been to Beijing to interview him, here he is on their front page, There's an exhibition opening here in Paris in the Jeu de Paume of his work, of his photographs today, and they've got lots of quotes from him on nearly every page of the paper, commenting on different news stories. They say, though, that he doesn't want to leave China permanently and become an exile. He wants people to understand better what's going on within China.
I'll be sure to check out that exhibition. Thanks very much, Elena, for running us through the French newspapers. You're watching live